celebration? Come on! So who's with me? Said that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever happens. And you, my friends, each and every one of you, you are the small group of thoughtful, committed citizens. And the fact is that you have changed the world. And when I say that, I'm not talking in hyperbole. You have changed the world. Because in order to change the world, we have to change our country. In order to change our country, we have to change our state. And in order to change our state, we have to change the hearts and minds of the people in the state that were going to make a difference, and that's the legislators. And it took a long time to do it, but we did it, and we did it because of each one of your effort. And the truth is that we have changed the balance of the world. The world has tilted just a little bit, maybe just by 1 degree, but it's tilted towards compassion and away from cruelty, and it's tilted towards redemption and equity and away from revenge. And that little tilt is going to make a huge difference in our world. And remember that and carry that with you, because you did it and it's important. So tonight is a celebration of what we have accomplished together. And we repealed the death penalty in this state by a single vote. And we know how important that is because we have lost by a single vote many times before. So when we think about a single vote, let me think about this. Someone in this room made the difference in what happened on the day that the representatives cast their vote, and by a single vote overrode the governor's veto. So who was it? Well, it could have been judges. Where's Phil Runyon? Are you still here? Judge Runyon? Judges got up and testified that the criminal justice system is a flawed system. And someone in that who was voting might have remembered those judges who got up there and said that, and said, I can't be part of a flawed criminal justice system. Well, if it wasn't a judge, was it a murder victim family member? These people that got up there and spilled their guts time after time, telling their stories and talking about the pain that they felt, and yet how they were moved away from revenge towards something that could be more healing for them. Was it that story that made a difference? I think very likely it was. How about law enforcement? Rich O'Leary, I know you're here. John Breckenridge, you're here. Law enforcement who got up there and said, you know, we are not a monolith, and some of us know that that it's not the death penalty that keeps us safe. and makes us feel respected by our people that we serve. It would be better training, it would be whatever. It would be something else, but we are not a monolith, and we want you to think about what you can really do to help police officers stay straight on the street. Maybe that's what tipped the balance. The exonerees, these people that came in from all over the place and came to New Hampshire and told their stories about being wrongfully convicted and being on death row for years, sometimes within days of being executed, only to find out through some kind of grace that they were in fact innocent. Was some legislator remembered Kirk Bloodsworth or Ray Crone or any of those people that came forward and said, you know, I can't be part of a system that would have put an innocent person to death. What about the AGs that testified for us? Greg Smith, Phil McLaughlin, respected, admired people in the legal community. Did some legislature in the end think about Greg and think about their testimony and think, you know, if someone like Greg Smith and Phil McLaughlin are going to come forward and tell us to abolish the death penalty because we shouldn't have it in the state of New Hampshire, I'm going to vote with them. What about someone who simply called or wrote their representative, and that letter and that call made the difference? Senator Ward was here. Are you still here? You talked about receiving communications from this woman named Marty Hunt. Maybe that had some kind of an impact, and if not for you, maybe it's what made a difference for some other representative. Those letters make a difference. Someone, a representative who read an op-ed or a letter to the editor. Simply a representative who said, you know, my constituent keeps showing up to these hearings, and I ought to pay attention to them. Donna and Tony Coriarty, maybe it was your rep, where are you? Maybe it was your rep who said, you know, these folks are always here. Maybe it was Eileen Brady's rep. Eileen is always here. Maybe today's the day I'm going to do something for my constituent Eileen Brady. And maybe it was just that one final conversation. There were a lot of photographs that were taken the day of the State House vote, the reps vote. And one of those photographs was Louise Spencer on 10th Street. Where is Louise? Louise talking to one of the reps that we were really afraid we were going to lose, and that would have been the final vote that we needed. And Louise, maybe whatever you said to that rep is what tilted the balance for us. So every single person that did something in this room made a difference. Finally tipped us over. So tonight is a night where we wanted to say thank you. We wanted to give you wine. We wanted to give you food. We wanted to bring you good conversation. We wanted you to look around and see your community, the village that has worked so hard with you over the last few years. And we wanted to recognize and appreciate the contribution of every single person in this room. It takes a village, and you are our village. So I want to start, I'm going to just call some people by name. I'm going to start by recognizing our board of directors, many of whom have been with us for a decade or more. If you're on the board, could you come forward and be acknowledged? selflessly, and with such humor and fun and passion over the last few years. Really, it was a pleasure to go to board meetings. It was a pleasure to have events with these folks. And I'm gonna miss you all. I'm gonna miss you so much. Marty has been the representative from the Episcopal Diocese, and the bishop who wanted to be here tonight and read this to you himself, was not able to. So the bishop, to acknowledge Marty's work, and Marty has been with us for at least 10 years. She has been the most detailed Hawkeye on the finance committee, and boy, have we needed her in the past. She has been the coordinator of our faith subgroup, and the faith subgroup has done so much work for us. Been the first to volunteer for things. She's just been a great colleague. And what Rob Hirschfeld had to say is this: Dear Marty, on behalf of the Episcopal Church of New Hampshire, I want to extend my deep gratitude for your persistent faith in guiding both this church and those in the wider community to the successful repeal of capital punishment in New Hampshire. With steadfast prayer and diligence, you kept hope alive, even when many of us despaired that we would ever see this happy outcome. Your faith led so many of us, and myself included, to keep the faith, to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with our God. You always showed up, gently prodding me and so many others to do the same. As a result, New Hampshire is better for it. Please know of our deep thanks, admiration, and love. May God continue to bless you, Marty. Your presence blesses us. Faithfully and gratefully yours, A. Robert Hirschfeld, Bishop. I want to recognize the leadership circle that we have, that have been advising us and been part of our organization for a long time. Okay? These folks, like Judge Jean Burling, who's here, are people that gave us their reputation and put their reputation on the line for when we were just a fledgling group and just starting out. The first person who couldn't be here tonight, he wanted to be, was Judge Joe Neto, who was the head of the Superior Court and on the Supreme Court of New Hampshire. And for someone like Joe Neto to lend their name to this organization meant an awful lot. And if you go on our website, you can see the full list of those people who've been on our leadership circle. I want to, there are people in this room who have cast a vote for repeal. Could you raise your hand if you've done that? There are people in this room who have telephoned their reps or written to their reps or Mark? They're sitting down. Who have done whatever they could to communicate their belief that the death penalty is wrong. If you have done that, if you have telephoned or written to your rep, or sent a letter to the editor, or written a op-ed, please raise your hand and let us know. The ACLU of New Hampshire, Amnesty International, and the Kent Street Coalition, who have been organizations that have orchestrated postcard drives and calls and letter writing. And they are for anyone who has attended or who has testified or attended a legislative hearing, please raise your hand. And special shouts out to the murder victim family members, to law enforcement, to the exonerees who have been foremost in testifying and in conveying their beliefs and testimony. That has not been easy to do. We have not been alone in this fight. We have national partners. Laura Porter is here from the Equal Justice USA. Where's Laura? Thank you. Equal Justice USA was of amazing value to us, especially as we were going through the Death Penalty Study Commission, brought in all kinds of national witnesses to us, and really opened our doors and our eyes to the fact that this is a national movement, and it extends way beyond the state of New Hampshire. And we are doing our part in New Hampshire to help that national movement, which is going to succeed soon. Our other national partners have been the exonerees from witness to innocence, and people like Sister Helen, who is not here tonight, but who has been such an important part of our movement in New Hampshire, such an inspiration to many of us in this room. Over the years, we have had some staff. And Catherine Cooper, wonderful staff working for peanuts for us tirelessly, and thank you. All I can say is thank you for all you guys did for us during your tenure here.
And thank you to Tides for funding us.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. We are our lobbyists. Where are they?
Which one is she swapping behind?
Years ago, we realized that we had the message, but maybe we weren't the right message. And that, you laughed, but that was true. And we had to find the right messengers. And in this team, we found the perfect messengers to reach out to people who we couldn't reach out to, who we weren't the right people to talk to, and you guys were. And I was a little hesitant about that. I'll be honest about that. But what you guys were able to accomplish for us in the last few years, I'm so proud to be your friends. I'm so proud to have worked with you, and I cannot thank you enough. We shot our wad of money working for the Repeal bill this year, and so we asked people to sponsor this event because we wanted to say thank you. We wanted to say thank you properly for you all. And so we have sponsors. They're not there now, but in this slide, we want to thank our sponsors for this. One of the very first things we did as a coalition was to start having a Friday afternoon vigil against the death penalty in the State House. And that vigil has been an incredible journey for me personally. partly because of the people that I shared that vigil with. Many times there were 20 or 30 people there, and it was a big crowd, and we had banners, and everyone was holding signs. But many times, especially when it was really, really cold in winter, or really, really hot in the summer, there were very few of us there. But the people that were always there were the Sisters of Mercy. But what I learned from the Sisters of Mercy, because I learned a lot from them, but what I really learned from them is that the work we were doing was prayer. Whether you're an atheist, whether you have a denomination that you belong to that is important to you, whether you feel like you're a religiously moved person or not, what we are doing, what we did together was prayer, and it was religion, and it was faith. And for all those people who, the ministers and the bishops, and all of you who were motivated by your faith and shared your faith in these testimonies, I'm grateful for everything that I learned from you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And finally, I want to talk just a little bit about people who supported us financially. And if any of you gave us a donation, raise your hand. I know that most of you have. We needed money. It was kind of a shock to me that we needed so much money in order to accomplish this work. But when we were first starting out, and I'm talking about over a decade ago, when we had a $7,000 grant from the ACLU, and that was our entire bankroll. And we didn't know how we were going to accomplish what we were going to accomplish. When we had about 25 members, when we were really trying to figure out who we were as an organization, we got a check in the mail for several $1,000s from an anonymous donor. And that check meant an incredible amount to me. It meant that someone was paying attention to what we were doing. Someone had faith in what we were doing. Someone believed that we were going to repeal the death penalty in New Hampshire, and they were willing to fund us and to put their money sort of where their hope and belief was. I had a conversation just last week with that anonymous donor and asked if after all these years I could out him. And he said, well, why? And I said, well, because I'm thinking what I want to do is to let everyone know, anyone who has means in this gathering, that to give money to a fledgling organization makes a real difference. It gave us the belief in ourselves to keep going. And there were so many times during the years when I thought about that money and not about that. Believe in us, and we're going to keep going. We have to keep going because Steve Kamen. I hate secrets, Steve. Thank you for releasing me from that. And I'm about to relinquish the stage, and I'm going to relinquish it to John Michael DeWitt. John Michael has been with us through thick and through thin. He is our campaign manager. Many of you have received communications from him. Most of you know who he is. He's always the guy behind the scene. He's always the guy doing this, the communications. He's always the guy sending out the messages. He's always the guy who's catering. He's always the guy who's trying to figure out how does he manage this board of strong-willed people who want to go in different directions. He is the guy. And what we have accomplished this year is as much a tribute to John Michael as it is to anyone in this room. So John Michael.
Right as she said my name, my watch said I hit the goal. You know when you go and your watch? I guess we did it. I can go home now. So I said to various people that abolition Groundhog Day is now over. Are we doing this again? We did, numerous times. And I worked with an incredible board, as Barbara's already said, who is one of the most active boards I've ever worked with, having worked with several nonprofits. I mean, they really showed up and did what they said they were going to do. And no one can do this alone. And so we needed everybody, obviously everybody here in this room. And I think Barbara's already made the point quite well that it isn't just, no one deserves all the credit or lion's share. It really was a group effort, and there are a few people here I wanted to just say send regrets today. They wanted to be here, but they could not be. Murder and family members Blake Allison, Laura Bong, Juliette Rodriguez, Andrew LeBlanc, Bob Curley, probably a couple others. Also some representatives, Ed Butler, Christy Bartlett, Elizabeth Ferreira, John Cloutier. These were all very active people with us. Brennan will probably talk a little bit more about the legislative agenda, but we would go to them and say, take some time out of your very well remunerated job and give us more time for the death penalty work. And there was a number, quite a big number actually, that said yes. And they worked with us closely through every campaign and talked to their colleagues and made a difference with what we did. And a few others who couldn't be here who sent their regrets. Paul Lutz, a member of our law enforcement team. Bill McGonigal, another member. Both of those were in that video that we produced last year. Deborah Pignatelli, sent regrets. Dale Pregent from the Keene Group, former Keene mayor. Sister Amy Hoey couldn't be here, so we remember her. Hannah Cox of Conservatives Concern. Judge Walter Murphy, and others I think have been mentioned. So just thank you so much. And I also did want to mention Massachusetts citizens against the death penalty who gave us technical assistance and money over the course of time, helped to fund the law enforcement video project, and were a touchstone as we went through this process over the course of the last number of years. So thank you to them. And I wanted to bring up Laura Porter's name again, because while she was with EJUSA, she's now with 8th Amendment Project, and it just, it's musical chairs, they just keep coming back. 8th Amendment Project was, as a national group, has been around for a few years, and obviously working on the 8th Amendment approach had a lot to do with efforts going forward towards the Supreme Court when that started to look less likely, and throughout that time they were also helping the states get their heads around what they were going to do, helping us gather funding. So I wanted to just give Laura a couple minutes to speak if she wants to.
I'll be very brief. I just wanted to say congratulations to all of you, and that you are an inspiration to the rest of the movement. And this was a good year for the death penalty movement. The Wyoming House passed a repeal with a 15-vote majority. It fell short in the Senate, but they're coming back just like this coalition did. The state of Washington Supreme Court found that their death penalty was implemented in a racially biased manner and threw out the death penalty and said it was unconstitutional. The governor of California put a moratorium on the largest death row in the country, putting a quarter of the people on death row out of danger of being executed. But we were all waiting to see what happened with New Hampshire, because first of all, a legislative repeal effort and a win is huge for our effort, but also just the tenacity and the grace and the wonder of the New Hampshire coalition and the effort that you all made was just phenomenal. And I can share that I was at a meeting with a number of litigators just a couple weeks ago, and we were all commenting and just reveling in your victory and saying so wonderful how New Hampshire ended the death penalty. And a lot of the folks in the room are saying, well, now the number of states that have the death penalty are 29. And doesn't that sound a lot better than 30? We're in the 20s now. And it just is, it's absolutely thrilling to see what you all accomplished over so long. And I'm just going to close this by saying that I really think that this is one of the most healthy coalitions that I have seen in all my years of following campaigns and all my years of following the state, is that the leadership that this coalition showed, and there are people in this room who come from all different walks of life, who come from different political perspectives, different religious perspectives, different ideological perspectives. And this coalition conducted themselves with such dignity and open hearts, and that everyone felt welcome to be part of this coalition. And the leadership of Barbara, of Arnie, and of course Rennie in the legislature for so long, and leading with eloquence and setting the tone for this coalition, it can't be matched. And I'm hoping that we can invite those who were part of this coalition to share their experience with other coalitions in other states, because I think that the model that you set for this open-heartedness, for the tone, for the love and openness, and bringing in everyone into your big tent is a model for others to learn about. So hear, hear, and congratulations, everybody.
Thank you for what you've done. I remember being there a few years ago and talking about the fact that it was possible. And bless you for hanging in, bless you for your determination, bless you for the hard work.
Y'all know who this is?
Tears, the sweat, it's all part of the process. But what we've done, what you've done, is historic. I want to acknowledge not only the extraordinary work, all of you, all of the dedication you put in, the effort you put in, and the courage that your members of your legislature have demonstrated. there are a couple of people, all of the people I met when I was there moved me to know that, you know, we're all in the same struggle. We're working on it here in California. We got Governor Newsom to grant the moratorium. We now are trying to figure out how to move him and help him move along the way toward abolition. We've got some of those crafty laws that have been put in place that we have to deal with. But I wanted to say a couple of things, just not only to exult in my joy at your victory, and express my appreciation for the courage and the dedication to all of you. But I also want to add a couple of personal notes. When I was there, someone arranged for me to be on a local television show with a senator at the time, Kevin Abart, a Republican senator, who got it, who understood that the death penalty made no sense on a human level, that it was a horrific practice, that it was demeaning and degrading us all. And he, as I understand it, perhaps because of his forward-looking approach, perhaps because of the courage he demonstrated in going against the crowd, lost the next election. Senator, I understand since that time you've been an active participant in this struggle, and really I think probably a role model for the members of the legislature, your colleagues, former colleagues. And I want to say thank you again for your courage, your dedication, and your absolute strength in staying the course. You're an example for a lot of people, I hope, to follow. And I want to put a special thanks out for my friend, your hero, our hero, Rennie Cushing. This country and then around the world with murder victims' families for human rights. Rennie's one of those dedicated souls who understands about not only about public service, but about what needs to be done to benefit the people in the country, the people in the community, people around all of us who really don't fully understand the damage that's being done by the taking of the life of another human being, by the states doing so, arrogating to itself the right to take a human life, a helpless human life. So we're all in this together. We've got a lot of work to do here in California and in some other states. Pennsylvania, I know, is looking at it. There are a number of other states that we're hoping are going to be on the cusp and following in the now noble tradition established by you folks in New Hampshire. I guess I just have to say how thrilled I am for you, how thrilled I am because of you, and how grateful we all are to you for the example you've demonstrated. Thanks. God bless you.
But then to help New Hampshire be a state that does not have a death penalty. And it's been formidable, overcoming the veto power of the governor, 2 governors. But you did it, New Hampshire. So because of Rennie's invitation and the New Hampshire Coalition, I've been coming in and out of New Hampshire for 21 years, for breakfast with legislators, for talks at schools, for going in and just meeting with people one-on-one, till finally we have gotten the vote, and New Hampshire is now a death penalty-free state. Congratulations to everybody with you. I'm at Lake Louise in Banff, so I'm not suffering. And love to you all, and thank you for letting me be a tiny part of this great endeavor.
We did it. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there, and I really wanted to, but new executive director of Witness Citizens, so that comes with a lot of responsibility. But as a death row survivor myself, I want to thank you from my staff, from the board, and all our members, people like Sabrina Butler, Ray Crow, Juan Melendez, and myself, and many others, Suture Graham, who traveled over the years and did so much work to help make this happen for everybody. I was glad to be there, and a special shout out for Rennie Cushing. Rennie, you did it, man. You're a good man. You're an honest person. Your leadership, and God bless everyone. Everybody have a drink on me, okay?
And this last individual, you may or may not know, Anderson Hill was with the 8th Amendment Project, recently left, but he's done a lot of work with us over the years, and here's his...
For the indomitable spirit that you, your individual supporters, your board members have displayed for a decade or more. It's that encouragement that stiffens the spine and that strengthens the will of your partners across the country. Rennie, you have been a hero of mine for decades, and it's you and your very unique voice that has made the difference in campaigns across the country, speaking for that most authentic of voices, family members who have lost loved ones. You say and have said in a way that, few without your experience, harsh experience, can communicate that taking the life of another citizen does nothing to fill the hole that violence has wrecked, that we've got to search and find a better way to respond to violence. Thank you for that. And to Barbara Cashin and to Marty Hunt, you have demonstrated the power of the volunteer spirit. The 8th Amendment Project was so proud to work with you, with our campaign partners, the ACLU, Amnesty International, Atlantic Philanthropies. I think back at the conversations with Anne Marie Bennett and think of the admiration that we had for John Michael, for the team of volunteers and abolitionists who are always there to answer the call. And this last 2 sessions where we've passed legislatively the repeal bill, only to be stopped at the governor's mansion, and to not let that stop us. This override campaign is just thrilling, nothing short of amazing, and well, thank you for that. The impact of this vote will be felt throughout the country. We've got partners in Wyoming and Utah, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. We'll see in your determination what we and they can accomplish in these various fronts still left to be secured. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of this campaign. We hope and expect that the Colosseum in Rome will be lit in celebration. I suspect Sununu may not want to go there, but really, I'm sure your passport is up to date. This is a celebration that all the world should be a part of. In fact, as I look out my window, I can see much of the world joining in the celebration. Hear them going hard with you and join in this celebration of life. I'll let you in on a secret. The 8th Amendment Project's very own Laura Porter, don't be fooled by that calm exterior. She is a genuine party animal. If there's anyone that can bring bring to life the celebration of this moment is Laura Porter. Force her to lead the chant. Force her to lead the dance. I wish I could be there. Laura knows too well, and she's the better representative for this celebration. Have at it, enjoy, know that your friends, your partners across the country are joining you with this celebration. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and we'll see you the next time.
So I'd like to now introduce somebody who needs no introduction. I'll introduce him anyway, Arnie Alpert. Arnie has been a bottomless well of support for me in my role with the coalition. When I started, especially in 2013, I didn't know anybody in Concord or what the coalition had been up to historically or in that present moment. And since he knows almost everyone and everything going on in Concord, I could go to him and he was only generous with his time and support. Some have called him tireless, indefatigable. I have a good authority. He doesn't believe he never gets tired. But perhaps we might say relentless, constant, or maybe a good word is faithful. Arnie is faithful to the proposition that humanity is kind-hearted and can learn to be more fair, just, and beautiful. And this has made working beside him a joy for those of us who have had the privilege to do so. Arnie.
I've had a lot of people come up to me in the last couple of weeks and give me congratulations, and I've accepted it, but I've also been proud to think about when you win by one vote, everybody who did anything is deserving of the credit for our victory here. So that's people who know me and work closely with me know that I keep notes on stuff and write reports. So I actually dug back into my monthly staff reports to November 19th, 1997. And found this in a staff report. It says the board of the New Hampshire Council of Churches agreed to convene a religious task force opposing the death penalty, which had its first meeting November 13. The meeting was focused and constructive and received attention in the news media. We agreed to open the group wider than the religious community and agreed to meet again the following month at the Methodist Church in Concord. That meeting was attended by members of Quaker Meetings, representatives of the Episcopal and Catholic churches, the Unitarian Universalist Social Responsibility Committee, the United Methodist Church New Hampshire Conference, the New Hampshire Civil Liberties Union, and a couple of unnamed legislators. So we were beginning at that time to strategize about how to defeat expected legislation to expand the use of the death penalty, which we knew was coming up. Repealing it wasn't even on our agenda at that time. Now, in 1998, an amazing thing happened. And that was while there was an expansion bill backed by the governor, Gene Shaheen, backed by the Speaker of the House, Donna Sitek, backed by the Republican leadership of the House and Senate at that time, Representatives Cushing and Clifton Below decided, against the advice of some of their colleagues who thought it was a little too much chutzpah, to try to repeal the death penalty instead of just saying, let's defeat the expansion, got up on the floor with a floor amendment and argued for repeal and almost passed it. And then went on to soundly defeat the expansion bill, and it really wasn't at that moment, I think, that for the first time we realized that we could actually repeal the death penalty in New Hampshire, and we got to work in doing that and kept having meetings. So my notes for the next coming meetings include, just thinking of some of the people who were there, David Lamar Vincent from the Council of Churches was our convener. Madonna Moran and Judith Dawlaw from the Sisters of Mercy were there. Yep. No surprise now looking back. Claire Ebel from the Civil Liberties Union. Steve Cadiv, who at the time was the death penalty, what's it called? State death penalty, something or other. Something coordinator for Amnesty International. What does SDPAC stand for? something like that. All right, anyway. Rabbi Richard Klein from Temple Beth Jacob, Sister Peggy Crosby, who was working in the Social Justice Office for the Roman Catholic Diocese, Bill Exner, representing the Episcopal Diocese, several United Church of Christ and Unitarian ministers, Representatives Carol Moore, Gloria Sell, and Marjorie Smith, and a young representative named Mandy Merrill was there. Interesting, Christy Dolmat Bartlett's name shows up on the attendance list. Christy was not a state rep at that time, probably didn't think about running for state representative for a couple of decades after that, but was actually present in the State House this year, casting a vote for repeal. So it's interesting looking at some of the continuity that's there. The Council of Churches played a key role all the way through. I want to mention Rabbi Klein, because not only did he come to meetings, but he volunteered Temple Beth Jacob to be a host for our monthly meetings, which was interesting. And then when Rabbi Klein died this past year, so I want to remember him now. When he left Temple Beth Jacob and was succeeded by Rabbi Robin Knopf, she continued the tradition of bringing a Jewish perspective and reflection on the Old Testament and the Jewish interpretation of the law into the legislature, and doing that consistently in a rabbinic and educational way that was extremely important. Some years we fought expansion bills, some years we backed repeal, some years we did both. A very important change happened when the Civil Liberties Union got the resources it needed to, for the first time. People who are, is Jeannie Rusky here? People connected with the ACLU now. The ACLU now has how many, 60 staff people or something working there? Anyway, it goes up every week, so it's hard to keep track of it. But back then it was Claire Ebel and I think a part-time secretary. And they got the resources to hire for the first time a legal director, and got Barbara Keshen to apply for and be hired for the job. And if I remember correctly, Barbara said she would take the job, at least one of her conditions was that she would be able to use her time to campaign for abolition of the death penalty. And I remember sitting down with Barbara and Lindsay Dearborn and Rennie Cushing in my office in Concord and starting to plot how to take the coalition to abolish from being this kind of informal group that kind of rose and fell and didn't really have any staff. And we were there, we had the heart, we had the spirit, we didn't have any resources. And Barbara knew that we needed something more than that. So with Barbara joining the team, things stepped up, and she brought in Catherine Cooper, and Catherine and Barbara conspired together to go out and raise money, and then we were able to hire Selena and Ray, and later bring in Karen Hicks and bring in John Michael. And that was part of really the story here of gearing this campaign up to the place where we were able to make it work. I want to say a word about John Michael. This is a man who can all at the same time order sandwiches for meetings, keep track of the voting records and likely voting records of 400 state representatives in 24/7, looking historically across their careers, and also write and design web-based and printed materials educating people about the issue of the death penalty. So John Michael deserves a great I want to make two observations about our campaign and what made it succeed. It's not just about being tireless or being relentless. You need to be involved in a campaign for this long and stick to it for this long. Don't get me wrong, abolishing the death penalty is a great stride to make. It is significant for all sorts of reasons. But you don't stay in a campaign like this for more than 2 decades unless you've got a bit of a view that's over the horizon. The death penalty itself is symptomatic of, or is a part of some other things that are what ultimately is why people are paying attention to it. So maybe you believe that the death penalty is a violation of the sanctity of life. Maybe you believe that the death penalty is part of the criminal justice system infused with racism and tilted against the poor. Maybe you believe that the death penalty is a fundamental violation of human rights. Maybe you believe the death penalty is a flagrant example of the excessive authority in the hands of the state. Maybe you believe the death penalty is a waste of human resources. Maybe you believe the death penalty is about state exercise of violence in ways that are avoidable. And maybe you believe in all of those things. But you're involved in this movement because there's something bigger that's over the horizon that we're all trying to get to. And that's what enables us to keep going. And that's why we know that while we celebrate this victory and take a pause and take a breath, we know that we have other work to do because we are still headed for those other goals. When some of you know that I was also involved in another rather lengthy campaign in the legislature having to do with acceptance of a Martin Luther King holiday in New Hampshire. That one took only 20 I was thinking about the difference between these two campaigns, and I think that ultimately one of the reasons why we succeeded in the Martin Luther King campaign was not only because it was the right thing to do and people cared about it, but it really was over 20 years you have a generational change in who was at the State House. So that by 1999, the people who were there were people who had come up in some way during the time of Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement, as opposed to the people who were there in 1979 when Senator Splain first proposed a repeal bill. That is not why the death penalty was repealed last month in New Hampshire. The reason why we repealed the death penalty in New Hampshire is because people changed their minds. Think about that for a moment. This was not just about naked political power. It wasn't about campaign contributions. It wasn't about, overwhelming people. It was about structuring a movement and structuring our messages that made it possible for people to move in our direction and say, those people are right and I'm going to vote with them. That is a remarkable thing, and there's a lot of things that we can learn about that in terms of other movements and other goals that we might have. The other thing I want to say is maybe that we had a not-so-secret weapon, our superpower, was the role of Robert Reynolds Cushing Jr. Randy, would you come up? About Rennie and Rennie's story, because Rennie was able to use his own story from the horrible murder of his father and his brother-in-law and use that in a way that turned the understanding of the death penalty upside down in the state of New Hampshire and made it possible for people to see the death penalty is something that is fundamentally unjust and something that fundamentally we don't need. And he did it in a way that made it possible for others to join in. Rennie always kept the door open, if you think about it. Rennie never focused on retribution against people who were on the other side. It was never about closing people out. It was always that even if people voted the wrong way this year, that we were going to make it possible for them to vote the right way next time around. And we can name names if we need to of people for whom that took place. Rennie is a master of what we can call an inside-outside strategy. That if we were just a coalition to abolish the death penalty standing outside the State House with a bunch of signs, we never would have succeeded. And alternatively, if we were just a bunch of legislators talking about, floor amendments and arcane procedures and all the kind of stuff that goes on inside the State House, we also wouldn't have succeeded. Rennie, coming out of his perspective as a longtime grassroots activist and community organizer, in addition to being by now a seasoned and highly experienced legislator. Like the word seasoned? Old, right? Anyway, but that was also a very important ingredient for us always, to be able to keep those two things in balance and moving together, because when those two things get out of sync, a campaign like this is very likely to go off the rails. Rennie has a principled ability to rise above partisan politics. So this was not a bipartisan campaign or even a nonpartisan campaign. You might call it a supra-partisan campaign. This was a campaign that was above the level of partisan politics, and that was another thing that made it possible for it to be successful at the State House. And because Rennie approaches this from a perspective of principles, this enabled Rennie, who is not, would not be considered a moderate. So this was not about finding the middle of the road and going there. This was about taking a principled position and leading in a way that made it possible for other people to get on board and follow along. This is unusual. Rennie brought with him connections to national and international movements. Rennie is remarkably creative, and Rennie has a remarkable attention to New Hampshire's history and political culture. Rennie has a remarkable appreciation for the best of our state's and our country's democratic traditions, small d democratic. That it's possible for people to get together to organize against great odds and to bring about change, that this is something that has happened before. And Rennie understood that even as we have this campaign in New Hampshire, that it was tied to a history. Tied to histories of people who have worked for suffrage, tied to histories of people working against slavery, tied to histories of people who have struggled against violence and against the death penalty, including Governor Badger, which is why we are proud this year to present the 2019 Governor Badger Award to Representative Rennie Cushing.
Thanks, Arnie. Thanks, everybody. Barbara told me I should be prepared to say something, and I actually don't feel too prepared to say anything after that. But I thought about what it was like in 1998 to walk through the LOB with my old friend Cliff Velo and talk about why we needed to do something other than what was laid out before us, that we needed to not have the discussion be about whether we keep the death penalty the way it is or expand it, but we ought to have a conversation about whether we have the death penalty or we do away with it. And one of the things that I just want to acknowledge in talking about Cliff and talking about Arnie and talking about me is that we came to know each other because we were engaged in corporate crime fighting. And we ended up getting to know each other in the course of that corporate crime fighting because we were part of the largest mass arrest in the history of the state of New Hampshire. So it's good grounding as we do this criminal justice work to have that as part of your background. I can't call all my colleagues up, but I remember back in 1998 having a conversation, one of those private conversations that you have with a colleague, with another legislator, because there was a lot of pressure to expand the death penalty in '98. There was John might talk about Bob Curley. There was an awful murder in Massachusetts. Jeffrey Curley was a young boy who was, abducted and murdered, brought to Manchester to have his body defiled. The body was thrown in the river between the Maine New Hampshire border. The region was shocked as the worst thing they could possibly imagine. And his father, Bob Curley, rose up and led a campaign to reinstate the death penalty in Massachusetts. And of all places, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts reinstated the death penalty in September or October of 1998. And it would have stayed that way, but for one person who had the courage, John Slattery, to change his mind. And so we didn't have the death penalty. But I think what was happening is the momentum in this state was to expand the death penalty. And I will tell you, the conversation I had with a friend who talked about, he said to me, Rennie, you're lucky. I said I was going to vote against the expansion bill. He said, Rennie, you're lucky you can vote against the death penalty. Your father was murdered. And I don't say that because it wasn't a matter of my good fortune, but it was a recognition that the political winds were such that casting a vote in opposition to capital punishment was akin to committing political suicide at the time. It's not an easy vote. It was never an easy vote. And everybody in here who has cast that vote knows that today it's still not an easy vote. But it is one of those things. And what I realized what my friend had said, in that I had the ability to cast a vote against the death penalty is because my father was murdered, because the way someone is not going to suggest that I'm, somehow, maybe some who says I do something I didn't love my father, or maybe I was crazy, but, basically recognize that I had a stakeholder in the conversation. And I think what has been difficult and what's always a challenge is for us to create a political climate where we realize that we can be both pro-victim and anti-death penalty. And I never want to lose sight of the fact that the reason we still have a debate about capital punishment in this country is that people are burning. And I know we want to celebrate, and I do celebrate, but underneath this all, there is some solemnity, because we can't forget that every day people are killed, and what we need to do is to create a society where we work to reduce violence in all forms, and we embrace those who've been damaged. And we have to do so because it's the right thing to do, and it's the only way we're going to build the beloved community.